everyone, it's Barbara Phillips with Nurse Practitioner Business Owner. And today I'm going to talk about business structures for the nurse practitioner. And this is super important because this is something that a lot of people get wrong. So before I actually dive into all of that, I made to make sure that you get a disclosure from me. I am not an attorney. I'm not a CPA, and I don't pretend to even be a tax advisor. And I need to say this because there are times when you absolutely must get the appropriate advice in order to do this correctly. What I'm giving you today is a real basic overview so that you are aware of most of the options that are available to you, and then you can take it further to find whatever information that you need. The other thing that I want to say, and I'll say this multiple times, is this is going to vary from state to state, so please keep that in mind. So the first question that comes up is, why is this even important? Why do we need to have a separate business entity? And the reason for that is because what you're doing is you're establishing your business as its own living, breathing entity with its own identity, its own set of rules and regulations. And this is important because you need to have it separate from you. You can't have this and this business and you intermingle too much. It has to be separate in order to limit some of your business liability. This is really important, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. The other thing is a lot of people want to sell their businesses. You can't sell yourself, and if you are doing this as yourself strictly with no kind of structural entity, then you can't sell it because it's you. So you want to have this done. It's not expensive. It's not difficult to do. And if somebody tells you otherwise, I'd question that because this isn't, it is that important. I would not go past go until you have done this. So again, corporate structures, they vary from state to state. There may also be some variation in your state that it may say, oh no, you're a professional, you have to do this. So just keep that in mind. Most of this information, and actually most corporate issues in your state, are dealt with at the Secretary of State level. And in many states, you can just go to the website. In fact, you can do the whole thing yourself right on their website. But I want to give you some cautions about that. So let's go forward. First of all, sole proprietor. I see too many NPs doing this. There should not be even one person doing this as far as if you are a professional. So you'll see here, avoid, don't do this. But what's really nice about the sole proprietor is it's easy. It's low cost. You don't even have to register with a business, register a corporation with the state. All you need to do is get a business license, maybe get a DBA, which is doing business as. So if it was me, I would be Barbara Phillips, but I want the business to be named the Main Street Clinic, whatever the case may be. So that's all you would need to file for. Now, here's where you get into problems. It's because of your taxes. When you're a sole proprietor, all the money that this business makes, which is really just an extension of you, is going to flow through you at your current tax rate. That's usually higher than you want it to be. You don't want to be taxed that high. The other thing is if somebody slips and falls in your business and they break a hip and they sue you, they're suing you, not the business, but you. So it's totally unlimited. You can be held accountable for absolutely everything. And maybe that's not the right verbiage because you are accountable to your business, but in a little bit different way. And you see here I have quarterly taxes. All of us are going to have taxes to be paid. Some of us quarterly, some of us will be taxed, it'll be taken care of through the business. So it just depends on how you're filing. The other thing is a general partnership. Also avoid. Don't go there, just don't go there. Again, it's easy, it's low cost. 2 or more people can just decide to set it up, file that DBA, and off you go. There's no kind of a requirement for a contract between partners. It also is flow through. So if Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck decide to start a business together, anything that Donald Duck does obligates Minnie Mouse to it as well. And all of the money that comes through gets split and goes right through to them, again at the higher tax rates. So again, Donald Duck goes out and decides to buy a $50,000 laser for the practice. Minnie Mouse didn't want it, but it doesn't matter because now Minnie Mouse is obligated. Okay, so this is another absolutely not, do not go past go. So what can you do? The most common thing that I see NPs doing, in fact, most people do, is a limited liability company or corporation. So these are the LLCs that you hear about all the time. They're a little bit more complex than just doing a sole proprietor as far as setting them up, but not unduly so. You do have to file for the state, and when you go to your Secretary of State website, you might see where you can file for that LLC, and it'll ask you to do articles of incorporation. Most of the time, they're already on the site, and so you can just edit from there. You can have multiple members in an LLC. So in an LLC, it's not listed as owner, it's listed as member owned. You can also have a manager manage the business of all the members that are in it. So you have members. So it can be a single member, it can be a multiple member. There are a little bit more corporate formalities, annual reports, that sort of thing. The business itself can incur the debt, and you can sell this structure. Taxation is going to be a little bit different. You can have it flow through. It'll be on your Schedule C for 1044. And you would, of course, pay your corporate self-employment taxes. All right? So an alternative to that is being an LLC that files for SCorp status with the IRS. Now, S corporation, a lot of people say I have an S corp, and S corp is not the business legal structure. It is a tax structure. It's just you as the LLC are electing that tax structure. What is nice about this is the company, the LLC itself, becomes the corporation that pays its own taxes. You essentially become an employee. You get paid. You have to do payroll. The business pays, part of your FICA and all of that. You pay the other part. You get a regular paycheck just like we're all used to getting. If your business applies for credit and has debt, it is the business that has it. You are not personally liable for it. Now, to say a little bit more about that, if you personally guarantee some kind of, say, a line of credit for the business, obviously you are going to be liable for that. And again, with SCorp, just like it's really an LLC, so you do have those corporate formalities that you need to follow. Now, a limited liability partnership. Again, I don't like partnerships. I think an LLC with multiple members is a better way to go, but that's me, and I'm not a lawyer. But a limited liability partnership, you must have a lawyer draw this up. I know a lot of NPs like to do everything themselves, and that's fine and that's dandy. But in this case, get a lawyer involved because you do not want to be responsible for something your partner does. All right, so if that partner goes out and spends that $50,000, perhaps there's something in the written agreements and how the lawyer has set it up that it protects you. So you want to do that. an LLP or limited liability partnership, you can still have the flow through. And again, you have the formalities. Now, in some states, your state will not allow you to have just an LLC or a partnership, right? It has to be a professional limited liability company, professional limited liability partnership, or even a professional corporation. But I will say this, I'm not talking about corporations, the SCorp status today, because for most NPs, that's a little bit that they don't need that. That's for a larger company, usually. Of course, your accountant or your CPA, your CPA or your lawyer may advise you otherwise, but for this discussion, we're keeping it to the smaller practices. So a professional limited liability company or partnership, you have that limited liability on the business issues, just like I've already talked about, but also it also limits you for malpractice, but it's only kind of sort of. Because one of the things that I think is important to understand is that your professional structure doesn't protect you from malpractice, all right? It will pierce that, what we call corporate veil. But what this does protect you of is if you have other members or other partners in that business and one of them does something and there's a malpractice suit, the whole company doesn't get involved in that, just that member for that malpractice. So if you've got somebody you're practicing with and maybe they do something, it protects you from that particular liability, not for the, general liability, but from that person's acts in terms of how it's going to affect you personally. But otherwise, when it comes to medical liability, medical malpractice, it goes right through the corporate veil. Okay, what about a nonprofit? Because a lot of nurse practitioners like the idea of a nonprofit. And I think it's important to understand that a nonprofit doesn't mean no income. And I need to sometimes point that out because a lot of people think that everything is free. It is not free. A nonprofit has to raise funds just like a for-profit business. The only real difference with a nonprofit, or actually there's a couple of them, but with a nonprofit, you get a lot of tax breaks. That's it. Sometimes you'll also get other breaks in terms of, if you're a nonprofit, it'll cost you less to buy these books, it'll cost you less for this software, but that's it. There's a lot to operating and starting and operating a nonprofit entity, and some of those things are, number one, it has to be controlled by a board. You do not individually own it for the most part. There are some people who've said they've been able to do different things in order to maintain ownership. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so if that's something you're interested in, you can certainly talk to a lawyer about it, because this is something else that is, you need a lawyer. But in most cases, a nonprofit is controlled by the board. So you can start a practice or a clinic, and your board can decide you are the wrong person to lead up that company and fire you. So that's something to keep in mind. But again, before you can be a nonprofit, you have to be an LLC or a partnership or whatever it is you're going to be. And then you can file to elect to do that, but it's not something you actually start with. All right, so a lot of formalities when it comes to being a 501c3. So what are you going to do first? When you're looking at all of this and you're trying to create your business, what do you do first? Well, first figure out, what is your goal? What is it you want to do? How do you want to do it? What does your state require? Because again, remember, that'll be a little bit different. Is it something you really want to do all yourself? Are you going to do it alone, or are you going to do it with other people? You need to ask those questions because that'll help you point whether you need an attorney immediately or not. In many places, CPAs are also able to do business advisement as far as that startup, and they can help you as well. So get your CPA involved. And actually, a CPA is the first person you probably want to talk to when it comes to your taxes. Because remember, these structures are actually for tax purposes as well, especially if you're looking at flow-through versus SCorp status. And you want to make sure that you are in compliance, completely in compliance. Now, I will say, this is not everything that you need to know about this. And this is a topic that we will be talking about in our upcoming workshop. In fact, our second meeting of the workshop is actually going to be on business creation, and we'll go into a lot more depth of this and a lot of other topics that you need to do in order to create that living, breathing legal entity that is going to be your business. So if you're interested in our Essentials for Starting a Practice workshop, it actually starts April 14th and will go through June 2nd. In fact, we just added an additional week, which is why it's now going through June 2nd. And it is a live online workshop. We will have registration open beginning April 1st, and it'll run through April 10th, and then everything gets closed down as we get ready to start the live component of the workshop on April 14th. If you are interested, you can go to npbusiness.org/workshops to get a little bit more information about it and to make sure that you're on the email list so that we notify you as soon as registration opens. So I hope this has been helpful today. And if you have any questions, you can certainly leave them below the video. You can also visit us over at npbusiness.org/business structure in order to see the show notes and any other links and resources that we have for you. So I hope to talk to you soon, and have a great day. Bye-bye now.